Okay, thank you very much for having me here. I want to talk about the Czech parallel corpus, which is online for almost more than 10 years now. And towards the end, I want to talk I want to say something about the problem that is obvious in a parallel corpus, namely that we have annotation for multiple languages and what we can do about it so that the users wouldn't have to learn so many different annotation systems and text sets and use it in a more comfortable way. Okay, so for those of you who have not heard about the Czech parallel corpus or about parallel corpora in general, which I doubt, but anyway, so parallel corpus is a corpus where you have multiple versions of more or less the same text. Can be multiple languages, or it can be also multiple versions within the same language, maybe multiple translations of the same texts. Usually we want these texts to be aligned at some text unit level. It's sentences most of the time, but it can be also words, sentences and words at the same time, and of course paragraphs. But paragraphs are usually the largest text unit that is annotated, that is aligned. We build those corpora from texts that are available already in those multiple versions. So usually it's a text and its translation or multiple translations into some other language. Actually, you can nowadays when you look around, so you can see that there are parallel corpora everywhere. So Google Translate is actually built from something that you can call a parallel corpus. That means so many websites in so many languages all around the world. And translators use parallel corpora. They have those computer assisted translation tools. And also you can use parallel corpora in foreign language teaching, and of course lexicographers and other experts use parallel corpora a lot nowadays. So if you compare parallel corpora to normal corpora, so you have some problems. Namely, it's hard to have the parallel corpus in some authentic state. So you usually have this translation, so you have a language that is not really authentic. So some people call it translationese, and it's not the proper language as it should be. Also, it's harder to get. You don't translate everything. You don't translate pop conversation and things like that. You have legal restrictions in various countries. It's different. Alignment is not 100% perfect, and you need specific tools that you don't need for normal corpora, such as aligners or parallel concordances. So, what's the advantage of a parallel corpus? So, there is this idea that translation preserves meaning, right? And so you can use it in various ways. If you focus on one expression, so you have some context around that expression, and you can see also that expression in another context in the target language or in the source language. So you can go in two ways. You can go from meaning to form. So that means if you use that meaning equivalence and find the equivalence in another or the same language. Or you can go from form to meaning, and if you don't know the meaning of something in your language, so you can maybe look at some other language and see, aha, it is this meaning. So you can go both ways. So what else beyond alignment can you do in parallel corpora? Of course, the same that you can do with our corpora, so linguistic annotation. Yeah, but you have to do it for multiple languages. And then if you have that annotation, so no longer have only the form and the equivalence of form, but you can also have the equivalence of annotation. So then you can maybe project annotation from one language to another. So maybe if you have a tagger for one language and you don't have that for another language, so you can use that alignment and project the annotation from language 1 to language 2. And if you have something like a common standard for all languages in your corpus, so you can have that meaning equivalence explicit even in the annotation. And that's something I'm going to talk about later. So InterCorp, that's the name for the Czech parallel corpus. So it's a part of the Czech National Corpus. It's built by the Institute of the Czech National Corpus at the Charles University, the Faculty of Arts. This is the interface. The whole thing was started by Professor Čermák in 2005. It was not online. It had to wait until 2008 when there was the first version. And it was first meant as a service to linguistic and philological departments of the arts faculty. And we have new releases once per year, more or less, since 2008. So we are now at version 11. I was hoping that version 12 will be online already now, but I hope it will be very soon. Yeah, maybe 2 weeks. So how the corpus looks like? So we have alignment and sentence level, not on word level. Each text in the corpus is in Czech and at least in one other language. So most of the time it's at least 2 or 3 other languages, but there are texts that are only in Czech and one another language. We have linguistic annotation, tags and lemmas for most languages, not syntax yet. And we have metadata about the text, so bibliographical items such as author, year of publication, and so on. There is a special part of that corpus that's called the core, and it's mostly fiction. So it's interesting for these translatologists and people like that. You can have this special type of language that you don't find some other place usually. So this is the development. Yeah? So now we have 40 languages plus Czech, so that's in version 12, which is due to come very soon. Now it's 39, that what you can see if you log in. And there was some development about the search tool and also the text that were included. So now the latest was that we added Chinese and tagged Chinese. So previously we added Japanese, and we added some new type of linguistic annotation, namely universal dependencies type of annotation, at least for 2 languages, and there will be probably a version, not probably, there will be a version of the whole corpus that would be tagged according to universal dependencies. So now I'm talking about something that should come later, but okay, it's not a real spoiler. The languages. So we have 10 Slavic languages. We don't have Upper Lower Serbian, but more or less we have them all, I think. 7 Germanic, 6 Romance. The things, the language codes that are in red, they do not have the core part. So for Estonian, for example, we do not have any fiction. And also for Albanian or for Chinese. We have them in the pipeline, but they will be not in the corpus, even in the new version yet. We have something little in Arabic. There are a few texts that are available in many languages. So in more than 20 languages we have a couple of texts. So it's a text written by Kundera, for example. So it's translation from Czech into some other language, and of course Harry Potter translation from English to many other languages. And languages differ very much in the volumes. So this is how the setup of the corpus looks like language-wise. So you can see that Romance are quite a big part. Germanic also. So Czech, of course, Czech is always present, yeah, for all the pairs. Other Slavic, it's also not so bad. So the texts that are there. So the total size in version 11, it's 2.7 billion words. So altogether, including Czech and everything, not tokens, words. So in tokens, it would be 2 billion. So we have the core part. It's mostly fiction. There is some special attention paid to this part during the processing. So you have it proofread theoretically by someone. So it should not be misaligned too badly. And then we have something called collections. So we have so that's freely available text that we downloaded from the internet. We have some journalism, law, parliament proceedings, European Parliament, and film subtitles, which is quite a hefty part, and the Bible. Actually, the film subtitles are quite interesting because they are probably the only possible way how you can really have a parallel corpus of something that's close to spoken language, right? Okay, so you can have interpreters, logs or something like that, but those film subtitles are something that's readily available, and that's quite a lot. And the Bible, that's the most recent addition. So this is about the text types. So you see subtitles are quite a big part. The core not so much, but that's something that is probably most important for most users. This is Czech, Polish, other Slavic, not Czech, not Polish, other foreign, and total. So this is this release 11. And you see that Polish is not so bad in numbers. So 24 million of fiction, words of fiction in Polish. So in total, Polish has 86 million. And Czech has nearly 200 million, and that's for all the text types. And this is the number of the texts, the fiction books in the core. This is the number for all different fiction books that we have in the corpus. And this is the number for Polish.
Average for language.
Sorry.
Representation of language in average. How many words for a language?
How many words for a language?
In average.
On average. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe if you see that graph, so you will see that it doesn't make much sense to say how many words per language, because the languages differ so much. So you have what you have here. English is the winner. Yeah. So then comes Spanish. Somewhere here should be German too. It is also not bad. But French is now a bigger has more texts, and Polish is somewhere here, and Polish and Portuguese has more now, which is Polish used to be, I think, the third or fourth, so now it's a bit lower, but not that bad. But if you look at the core part, yeah, so German is the winner. Then comes English, Spanish, and Polish. Yeah, Polish is more or less the same as Spanish, as for the fiction part. And some languages have very, very small core. So Arabic, for example, or Latvian. That's for the rest. So languages which are official languages of the European Union have this Europal part important. Yeah, so the other languages do not have it. So for example, Russian doesn't have that, and it has a smaller part. So some averages. The average number of texts per title. So that means how many versions of a single text there are in the corpus. So it's something more than 3. For all languages, we have that number of original titles and that number of translations. So you can see that clearly there are more translations than originals. For Czech, we have 320 originals and so many translations. So that means that we try to build the corpus in such a way that if you compare Czech with some other language, so you would have a kind of balance as for translations and originals. So it's not always like that. Yeah, in some languages you have many more translations, and of course once you have translations from a third language, so for example Harry Potter in English, so it floods the whole corpus with translations, and so you can't really keep that balance. There are still some titles without the original versions, which is not nice. It's usually something translated from English into a number of other languages, but the English translation is missing. So English should actually be much more represented than it is at the moment. So in version 12, it will be somewhat better number than this. Here you can see the blue are the originals, so you can see that English is the winner, so more than 20, then comes German, then Spanish, French, Swedish, Slovak, Polish, Dutch, Croatian, Russian, and so on. So we don't count the Czech part here, because it is much bigger. So this is the list starting from the most frequently translated, most represented title. So it's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So it's Slavic and other are separate here. The Little Prince, Alice in Wonderland, 1984. Again, something from English. The Hobbit. Bulgakov, that's the first Russian translation. Then the first Czech is of course Hašek, and then Kundera, and then the first Polish author is Lem, Solaris, and there is something more, it's Gombrowicz, and Tokarczuk is here also. And Gombrowicz is six times, so it's 7 times, and this is 6 times. Okay, so the red are Slavic. So now, if you compare the version that is still not online, but will be very soon, with the previous version, so how many more words do we have? So for English, we have 4 million. For English was doing very well in the most recent version. Czech, okay, that's expected, and Polish, it's 1,300,000 words, so 5.5%, 1.4%. But Polish already has quite a lot. So if you compare it with Japanese, for example, it had about 7 novels, so now it has 13. So clearly the increase is much larger, but the total is still small. So that's the total number. So about 8% increase in the number of all languages for the core part. So what would we would like to do? Yeah? So we would like to have more representative or balanced core, the share of translations and originals, and also those languages that are not represented well should be represented, of course, more. And still, there are people who claim that it's too little, too small, and even for languages such as English or German, if you look for a specific phenomenon which is quite rare, so of course you need more data. And there is something which we can't have at the moment for technical reasons, and it is not really nice that we don't have it. So that means we don't have multiple translations. We cannot have multiple translations in a single language. That should of course be nice, but it's not possible right now. So if you compare it with some other parallel corpora, there are quite a few around, and some are even bigger, but they do not really have, for example, the metadata are not there. They are collected from freely available texts that are online. And most of the big ones are really meant as online lexicons with pointers to the texts, yeah, which is of course very useful, but they are meant somewhat differently. The numbers may be 1 year old, so maybe some of them are much larger now. So why is InterCorp different? So we have that fiction part. We have that part manually checked, at least that part. We have those metadata, and maybe some bonus for people who are used to working with other parts of the Czech national corpus. We have the same interface. That's the interface is the same, and we have a system where some of the actual users are also responsible for what is eventually included in the corpus. So we have so-called coordinators, 1 or 2, maybe 3 sometimes, for each language, and they propose the titles that should be included in the next year, and the governing body of the corpus decides whether it's appropriate or not. And they also, these coordinators, they make sure that the texts are correct, and they have students that help them, scanning, and I'll talk later about that. So how the corpus can be used? So we have the online interface. If you are interested, you can log in. If you just tell me if you don't know how. And it's a search engine that's called Manatee, and on top of that there is something called Context, and that's the interface to that search engine. And Manatee is also in Sketch engine, yeah? So that's the engine behind both Sketch engine and Context. By the way, you can use Context as well if you are interested. It's freely. You can use it freely. The same interface is also used by the Lin.Clarin, so that's the Czech Clarin repository of corpora and other tools, and Context is now installed in Clarin, and you can query the corpora that are present at not at the arts faculty, but at the Faculty of Mathematics and Physics in Prague, at the UFAL Institute, and you can but basically it's the same interface. For parallel corpora, it wasn't, the parallel query option was not there since the very beginning of Context or Manatee. So it was added about a couple of years ago, and I think 8. There is in the history, you can check. It's now fairly stable, and you can use it in more or less in the same way as the standard monolingual query, also with the option of querying a single language, a single corpus, which is part of the parallel corpus, without the other language, or even multiple languages. You can query multiple languages at the same time. You have the search filters according to the metadata. You can do parallel queries. You can use corpus query language. You have positive and negative filters on the concordances, sorting all those statistical functions. You can also build custom subcorpora and export your concordances into maybe Excel or some other type of other format. Okay, so you probably don't see much, but this is I tried a query for a Polish verb szamotać się. Yeah, so I heard that it's not really vulgar or anything. It's not quite common. And if you try this into some other query into some other parallel corpus, so this is the sketch engine interface into the opus open parallel corpus, something like that. So that's probably the largest standard parallel corpus around. So if you query for that word in Opus Polish, so you get 1, 2, 3 hits. That's all. Yeah, I couldn't get more. If you query InterCorp, you get 88 hits, because of course szamotać się is probably not a verb that you could see in law documents or even in news. Yeah, so of course we have that fiction part, and so you see this is the Polish. Polish, not original, not translation. We don't know. We didn't filter this, yes? And you can see the English and the Czech parallel text aligned by sentences. And of course, you do not have the keyword here highlighted, because we do not have word-to-word alignment in the corpus. Yeah? So you have to search for yourself. Yeah? So try yourself. So what we have to do, or what we should do in that corpus query interface, so or the search engine, we would need that option to highlight the corresponding equivalent of the keyword that we queried in one of those texts. We would also like to have some information on that alignment. So that is information that's relative to this relation between two or more languages. So this alignment is one sentence to two sentences, or two sentences to one sentence. Of course, you can see it when you have the concordances, but you cannot ask for that in the query. You cannot ask for something that has one-to-one, one sentence to one sentence alignment. Yeah? So that's what you cannot do. Also, whether it's checked or not. Yeah? So maybe if it's automatically aligned, so there is some confidence score. You don't have that information because it's relative to that language pair, and it's not easily implementable in Manati. There is something called Lexical Profiles or word sketches, so we don't have it, not even in the other parts of the Czech national corpus. We would like to have that alignment by words, also multi-word units or constituents, and we would like to have. We already have some option where users can say, oh, this is wrong. I don't like this alignment, or I don't like this. The way it's annotated, but it should be improved. So to at least partially compensate for the lack of word-to-word alignment, we have something called translation equivalence database, or database of translation equivalence, and that's actually extracted from word-to-word alignments that you can do on the texts that are that are present in the parallel corpus. So at the present we have it for all languages, but not for every pair. So we have only Czech or English, and then the other language can be any of the list that we have. And you can filter it by the text group. So you are interested only in equivalents that occur in the core, not in the collections, not in news or poem proceedings. You have support of regular expressions in the query interface and multi-word expressions, and unfortunately at the moment it's still based on text of version 9, but it should be available for new text. So that's especially painful for languages that do not have as many words. And if you try, for example, Japanese, so it's horrible because Japanese was not even tokenized in version 9. So the poor track really cannot find any words because it's always sentences. Because those Far East languages do not have word boundaries marked in the text, so there's really a need to do some clever tokenization, which we didn't do at that time. So this is when you try shamotać in track, and you get so it's into English. Yeah? So you have equivalents such as struggle, fight, tussle, scrunch, haul, flutter, and it's sorted by the frequency. So you can see that the frequency is lower here. We have more now in the corpus, and if you click on that, so you can get back to concordances. So you have a kind of way to compensate for the missing by-quick function. You can also ask for a specific language pair for full texts from that language pair, but because we are still careful not to disturb any publishing rights or any rules about what the author can do with that text. So we do some technical protection. So first of all, you cannot query for very large segments. So you always get just a concordance that has some limit, so over 200 words, I think. If you ask for the whole text, so we can give you the whole text in shuffled order. So we have blocks of sentences which are shuffled. So you cannot really read it from the beginning to the end. Yeah, so and there is some license attached to it. So how people use the corpus? I do not have the most recent data, but this is 1 year. Yeah, so this is basically academic year. So it's per day we have 553 queries, and it was interesting to realize that actually most people do not really care about that distinction between the core part and the rest. So they just query, yeah, and they don't use the filters too much. So 89% select all text types. Some people select 3 or more languages, not so many, but still, and some people query only their language, and they are not interested in the parallel text. So maybe they use the InterCorp as a monolingual corpus actually for their language. The most frequent language pairs, so it's either English or German in comparison with Czech, both directions, and 3.5% of queries involve Polish. Yeah, so that's not so small number. Yeah, there are people publish using InterCorp. Well, actually, most of those are theses, bachelor theses and master theses that are produced by students at the Charles University, and there are a few papers. So these are the numbers. So I'm sorry, this number may involve something which is also called InterCorp, but it's some military unit in Central America. So I didn't have time to filter that. But the rest is okay. Okay, pre-processing. So text choice, that's done some collaboration between those coordinators and the management of the corpus. There is for things that are not available online, so or electronically, so we have to do scanning, character recognition. So now there are e-books, of course, so that doesn't count. Proofreading, yeah, for scanning. Segmentation, sentence boundary detection, comes next. Not tokenization yet. Then we do alignment, which is done automatically, and it's checked subsequently within a tool that we have. That's I'll show you later. Then you do tokenization, morphosyntactic annotation, add metadata, and you insert it into the corpus search tool. So we have bibliographical database for this metadata. We have the alignment editor, where you can do the automatic alignment and then edit the result. We have sentence splitter, aligner, which is integrated in the intertext, and we have language-specific tokenizers and taggers. Language-specific, that means for each language we have a separate tool that does this job. Coming soon, in a version of the next release, version 12, we would have a single tool that would cover most of the languages that we already have annotated in using those language-specific tokenizers, plus some other that we haven't, and I'll talk later about that. So, linguistic annotation. What does it mean? So we annotate tokens, so that's also annotation, how you separate text into tokens. Lemmas, morphosyntactic tags, annotations of forms, and also syntactic annotation, functions and structure. We don't have that yet, but we will have it with this UT pipe, with that new multilingual annotation. The current strategy is that you use whatever we can get and what we believe is better than anything else that we can get elsewhere. So we have tokenizers that are bundled with the tool that we have. So we even have different tokenization rules for different languages. We have text sets that were designed by someone, maybe with different principles in mind and with their language in mind, and of course annotation models trained elsewhere. So manually annotated corpora that were used as training data for those tokenizers. So none of that we did ourselves, except in Czech, but that's some other project within the Czech National Corpus. Or within the math faculty. So this is the list of tools that we have so far, and you can see here how differently the tags look like. So this is everything is about a prepositional phrase. Yeah, even in languages where you do not have prepositions. So some equivalent of a prepositional phrase. So maybe adpositions for Finnish. And so preposition is red, determiner is orange, adjective is green, and noun is blue. Yeah? And some of them are similar and some of them are very different. Actually, there's something not really wrong. So, of course, for Japanese, you have characters in the system, because that's what the coordinator for Japanese claim that is best for the students and for people working with Japanese. And apart from that, you may still think, okay, so that's just the notational difference. Yeah? So maybe you can translate all the tags into something common, and you do not lose any information, and you do not have to add any more information. But it's not that easy, as you will see soon. What we can do with that multitude of tags? So they are not really easily convertible into one another or into some common standard, and we also have different tokenization rules. So should we convert it into a common text set? Yeah, it's we still don't know what the common text set should be, maybe, or should we retag it by something else which would give us this common text set or something language universal? And what about tokenization? Yeah? And how to implement the result in our Korpus search tool and interface? Yeah? So conversion or retagging, that's the first question. Then into what? How should the result look like? What about tokenization and how to implement that? To show you that it's not only notational difference in the text. So, for example, in English, you have under and because as prepositions, as well as subordinating conjunctions. But they are tagged in the same way in both contexts. And of course, in some other languages, you have that difference. Yeah? In Czech, you have a form that's very similar to the Polish form, so that's a pronoun according to the Czech demonstrative pronoun according to the Czech text set, but it's adjective according to the text set that was developed here and that we use for Polish, and it's adjective form. Yeah. Same for numerals, so we have ordinal numeral, while for Polish we have basically the same form as an adjective. In English, we would have the superlative form of an adjective tagged as such, while in German we do not see the information that is superlative. But in addition to it, or instead of it, we see the information that it's attributive adjective. Yeah? So you see there are different views of the same. About the tokenization. So you have similar phenomena treated in opposite ways. So, for example, in Czech you have forms such as abyste, and in Polish żebyśmy. In Czech you don't create any additional tokens, while in Polish you do. You have 3 tokens. Same for udělal, zrobiłeś, 2, and other forms that have this clinical form of the second person singular. By the way, this is the only person and number where you have that in Czech, while in Polish it is more prevalent. Oś, it's just 3 words, but you should separate it into preposition, pronoun, and this critical s. And same for some other languages. So in Czech, in the present tagger, you retain it as a single unit. Also in German, for example, zum, zu dem, you don't split anything. And for French, something similar. Whereas in Polish, you do the splitting, and also in English. Yeah, so in the English English corpus, you have split in the middle, somewhat not really. You wouldn't expect. Yeah. For Japanese, our recent edition, they split basically into morphemes. You can claim it's morphemes. It's grammatical morphemes that are because you do not have the word boundary, so you can design basically any tokenization system you would like for Japanese, because you do not have any clue in the text. So these are separate tokens. Yeah? Particle, verb, particle, noun, particle, adjective, noun, noun. With hyphens, yeah. So sometimes the hyphens are kept together. The hyphenated parts are kept together, including the hyphen. Yeah. So this is French. This is German. This is probably Italian. This is Czech again. Czech. While even in Czech, you split this form, because this is actually subordinated conjunction. You split those parts that are inflected separately. So Taiwan is not, while the town Frýdek Místek is inflected separately. But in Polish, yeah, so you do split Czesko-Polski, something like that in Polish, and Bielsko-Biała you split in Polish as well. So what can we do about this? So two things, I repeat that, conversion or retagging. And if conversion, so probably into some common taxonomy, so there is something very sophisticated that we might use in some ideal world, where we could retain the information and do not add any more information. We could also have something called multidimensional taxonomy of categories, and I'll talk about that later. Or we could use some existing standard. So that's about conversion. And now about retagging. So it still is the situation that maybe for most the taggers, the result of the taggers, national taggers, language-specific taggers, is better than the result of the universal tool. So that's related to the fact that this universal tool doesn't have enough training data. And what we would like, and what our users certainly would like, is that those language-specific tools should be still kept in the corpus, or somehow available for the users to see or to search, even though it would have those universal tags. And that's something that not so easy to obtain if you have this retagging. You still remember tokenization issues, and you still have to remember how to implement it in the search tool. So, about that multi-dimensional taxonomy. At one time, it seemed to me like a very, very nice idea, because it's based on those criteria for distinguishing word classes, semantic, syntactic, morphological, and there are, of course, you can either pick one of those and the other treat as supplementary, or you can apply them in parallel. So these are examples where you pick one as the main criterion, and those others maybe as supplementary. Yeah, so the Polish text set is actually used on the morphological criterion, and the authors here claim that for richly inflected languages, morphological criterion is best. And I quite like that system, because it's so clear and doesn't have the loose points that others have. Yeah, but what I would really prefer is that you can to apply those three criteria in parallel. So you would have a multi-dimensional taxonomy of word classes, and together with that, those morphological categories will go as well. For example, the Czech has a preference. The Czech text set has a preference for semantic classes. And you can, if you convert from Czech into that multidimensional system, so you can say, okay, it's something that you could call a semantic class. So pronoun would be a semantic class, and numeral would be a semantic class. Yeah? And you can retain that in the proper place in the multidimensional space. For Polish, you can do the same, except it would be in this inflectional dimension. For German, you would have it in the syntactic dimension. And if you have more information, or if you add more information, so you could specify the missing dimension in that space. So that would be then the full information, and you can then use it maybe for Powell corpus, yeah? Where you have multiple text sets, but you can also use it for monolingual corpus. So in dziewiąta, so this ordinary numeral can be a numeral and an adjective at the same time. Yeah, maybe some inflectional class. Yeah, adjective would be something inflectional, and syntactic could be the same as adjective, but could be also adjective. But you can have different names for that. And there would be this option to, if you like that information about the other dimensions, so you could map it into the 3D space of categories. So it all looks nice, but it's not so easy to maybe to implement that in a real system, because users expect just one nice label, and this is maybe something that you can theorize about. And so I basically I actually said, okay, maybe it's better to use a standard and do not try to invent something new. So now a de facto standard, I don't know, it's not something that some international body approved, but it's a de facto standard. You have this potential lossy conversion from language-specific text sets. You have two-level tokenization, which takes care of that of something called syntactic and more orthographical words. So syntactic word would be something from between word boundaries in the text, and syntactic word would be something that you can have in a syntactic tree as a node. Yeah? So if you have this fused item where there are multiple syntactic words within one orthographical word, so you have to really split them, and university dependencies can do that. So this is an extract from the principles of the universal dependency standard, but I think you have heard about it here from other people too. And I like the project, and actually a colleague of mine is very active in that, and so it's not so very clean system. You have all sorts of problems, but so many people use it nowadays, and it's something that works. With some issues. So, for example, you do not find all the distinctions or in the text set that I might prefer, or there are some problems that are not that I would solve differently. But anyway, it's nice to have a standard that works for many languages. For Slavic languages, for example, even for Slavic languages, you have to have a determiner according to to the standard. So, still there is this issue, conversion or retaking. Yeah? So once you decide on a system that you want to convert to, or that you want to have as common, so what's the pros and cons of the conversion? So you probably can retain that language-specific annotation from the original tags, language-specific. But it's really hard for some text sets or languages to find the specification for that conversion. So you end up writing something yourself, or adding something to something that is not really as good as you would like to have it. So either you're lacking information, or you lose some information often. It's the issue with tokenization is quite crucial here, because you do not really know how to convert something from a text set that is based on orthographic words into something that is based on syntactic words, or at least includes them. And you probably end up with something that still has these conceptual differences, because you cannot cope with everything that you have in those many texts. So it's really a lot of work to do it for 40 languages. Yeah. Except that you have it already maybe quite nicely done for 10 languages, but for the rest you end up being bogged in hard work. So why retagging by a universal system or universal dependency could be easier? You have the tool chain for many languages. You have the chance that it would work better in time, because so many people use it, and tree banks are used. You have annotation which is based on the same principles across languages. Incompatible tokenization is not an issue, because you start from the beginning. Syntactic annotation, and you get syntactic annotation as a bonus. The drawback is that you may not get as good quality of annotation, because they have small training data, and it's hard to relate the result to the language-specific annotation in InterCorp, which is important for many users. So still we decided that we would go that way, and we would retag all InterCorp in the first version as an additional version of this release 12, and we will see if we can somehow project the language-specific annotation either way or one way.
Why not to do both and compare?
We will do both. Yeah. So we will have one version of release 12 which will have the language-specific annotation, and one version which will have universal dependencies.
Both methods, not both annotations.
Both methods. How do you mean both methods?
Retagging and
That's retagging. Yeah.
Yeah, but the other mapping.
Oh, mapping. Oh, because it's so much work. Yeah, we can do it for some languages. Yeah. But now the last point. I'm sorry. How much?
I guess we can still have 10 minutes or so.
Okay, so I need 5 more minutes. So we still have to represent the result in the search tool. Yeah? So UD distinguishes orthographic and syntactic words, while Manatee has a single level of tokenization. So that's the toughest issue. Yeah? So should we have syntactic words as Manatee tokens, or should we have orthographic words as Manatee tokens? Yeah? So actually both options have been tested. There is a corpus that shows one of the options. and there is another one that is for the other options. Universal dependency represents categories as attributes and values. So number equals singular, while the standard in Manatee is a positional text set, and it's not so well suited for attribute values. But you can compensate for that when you have a menu in the query interface for queries including syntactic concerning categories, morphological categories. And that's already done, and that works nice. For SQL queries, it's harder. Manatee is not suited to represent syntactic structure, so it's somehow simulated by pointers to positions. So each token has a pointer to its governor or head, and also to its lemma and form. And you can have an image of the syntax tree with parallel highlighting of the text and the tree nodes for all the concordances. So that's what we think we will have. So for example, if we have a sentence, gdybychom nepřišli, it's nice to have glosses in Polish because it's the same. Gdybyśmy nie przyszli. So in a proposal for in one of the proposals for how to treat this double tokenization in Manatee, we have the primary tokenization is for orthographic words, and then you have so-called multi-values, so multiple values. So for each attribute where you would have a need for representing the syntactic words separately. So you have a concatenation of those forms, and you somehow assume that they are in the same order. So the lemma for the first part would be gdyż, and for the second part would be být. So bychom we lemmatize as být, as byť. And similarly for these universal part of speech tags, so that comes from universal dependencies, these labels, and that also comes from universal dependencies. But here you see something weird. So we have one column and then nothing, and then there's two column and then all the rest. And notice that this is actually just one of those multi-values. So this is just a way how to say that all these features apply to the second part of the fused word, to this verb. Actually, yeah, bychom. This is subordinate conjunction, and there is no category that applies to this. And of course, this is just one of the multi-values. There is no other way how to do it in the Manatee formalism. Yeah. But at least you have some indication that this is for the second part. Clear, and the reason why this is needed is because already in the annotation of a single verb you have those multi-values, so you would need some bracketing, but bracketing is not available here. You can have the logic of disjunction and you can say this should apply in the same time, or this should apply either or in the query, but not in the annotation. And here it just says that both are attached to the third, to the position third, which is not here, or maybe it should be. Sorry, this is I shouldn't say that. And this is the relations according to universal dependencies. Now, this is a more involved example. You can click. You can see it if you use this link. Miałabyś sobie ułożyć życie. So in Czech you have this form cis, which is fused pronoun and or reflexive particle, and this clitic auxiliary. So this is the gloss in Polish. So how do you represent that? So if you click on that corpus, so you see this, yeah, and here is this coordination. If you go to here and click on that, so you see this. Now you can see the problem now that this cis should actually be split into two parts, into two nodes, and each node should be dependent on a different head. Yeah? So si is a pronoun, and more or less, and moreover, it's in reversed order because for some reason in Euros dependencies they switched the order. So si should depend on uspořádat, yeah? And s as the clitic should depend on měla, yeah, as the finite verb. You can have all the categories here. Moreover, you have all the list of features that apply to the verb and pronoun together as a one list. So it may even happen that you have number singular here and number plural here in the first part, and then again number singular in the second part, and you have no clue where the border is. So this is a way to this is the way how an actual corpus looks like, built from universal dependencies. So the solution to that is to use those delimiters. So to say, well, the first part and the second part is separate, and they have those separate set of features, and this is what you forget from the output of the universal dependency parser, because these are the syntactic words, but you encode them within the orthographic word. So this is the way how to preserve the way at least Czech corpus users are used to see the concordance and still encode the syntactic structure and syntactic tokenization, syntactic tokens, syntactic words within the format of Malati. So this is the link, and I've come to the end. Thank you.
Prosimy o pytania. Czy ktoś ma jakieś pytania? Ja zapytam w takim razie o tego Harry'ego Pottera i o Kunderę i o różne rzeczy. No, już się w międzyczasie wyjaśniło, że to jest tam specjalna licencja wchodzi w grę, tak, jakaś edukacyjna, no ale z drugiej strony konkordancje długości 200 słów to są takie dosyć już długie. Ja nie wiem, czy my byśmy się odważyli na wystawianie takich. Czy to jest... Jak to jest na Harry Potterze? No bo
yes, I was expecting that question. So nobody sued us yet. And I think for unregistered users, you only have 100 words concordance, and if you register, so you can have more. But I'm not sure. We, at the very beginning, we were trying to be strict, and we were trying to obtain permission from the publishing houses, and it was very difficult even with the Czech publishing houses, although we had some success. But for people who negotiated with the French publishing houses, it was quite impossible. It was just no. Yeah. And so we couldn't have anything like this if we would really if we really would like to be strict and not do anything which might just smell of something not really proper. So I know about one parallel corpus who had to be taken off the public search because the lawyers of the institution or university said it was not proper to do this. And so that's one case. But it wasn't that someone sued them. It was just that the institution decided that it's not correct. So until that happens, we are where we are.
Ale czy można ściągnąć cały korpus?
Nie.
Nie.
No. No. You tell us which language pair you would be interested in, whether you would like to have the annotation or not, and then we would give you the corpus in shuffled order. The parallel, the pair of languages in shuffled order. Well, for these freely available sources, it's not really important. Yes, you can have it yourself and process in the same way. But for the core part, it is important.
I was wondering from dziewiątka. To me, I think it's numeral, not adjective. Because if we look for plural form of dziewiątka, we will get dziewiąci, which is not correct in Polish. And I wonder if this particular word should be an example. Yes. It should be an example, because I think it should not be classified as an adjective. It rather should be classified as numeral. So.
Well, I'm taking whatever I get from the Polish tagger. So I forgot to say we used the tagger for a long time, but now and including the text set.
Rather than, of course.
But now we in the new version we switch to KR and T. So maybe it would, but it would probably not solve this issue. Yeah? And I don't know. I didn't realize that.
It's Polish grammar, so of course you don't have to know this, right? I just noticed that perhaps it's not correct to write it.
Yeah, maybe it should be classified as an adjective of a type or some subclass. Yeah, but numerals are also dziewięć or
there are
many other forms. Yeah, but that's one view of the word class. No, the view how it's inflected, and it's probably not going all the way to distinguish it between adjectives that can have plural and those that cannot have a plural. So it just says it's inflected like an adjective. But I don't feel responsible really for the Polish text, even though I said I like it.
To może ja tylko powiem, że ten temat ma dosyć długą dyskusję. Jest dosyć długa tradycja opisywania tych form w ten sposób, więc znaczy to była świadoma decyzja wielu badaczy i wielu twórców słowników korpusów polskich, więc tylko chciałem powiedzieć, że to nie jest błąd, to jest świadoma decyzja.
Ja również w ogólności nie mamy nic przeciwko mnogim formom liczebników porządkowych. Wystarczy, żeby jakaś grupa sportowców wygrała łącznie, na przykład jako drudzy, trzeci, ósmi.
Jest to...
Nie, no jest to podobna forma.
Trzeci na pewno, czwarci na pewno, w którym miejscu odciąć.
Właśnie, no, trzeci spokojnie.
Nie,
siódmy to świetnie. Jest nasz problem.
Ale ze sztuką jest bardzo dobrze.
W każdym razie, jak
Nie, no to nie...
w każdym razie problem nie jest samą ideą. W każdym razie problem nie jest samą ideą liczebnika jakieś jest inne źródło ograniczenia, jeśli ono w ogóle jest.
W czeskim też można powiedzieć tą liczbę mnogą dla tych liczebników.
Można, ale czy to się robi, czy to ma odzwierciedlenie wtedy w korpusie? Wtedy nie mamy takich
So you're saying that there are no plural forms in the corpus of these ordered numerals?
They can be here, but I doubt if all of them will be visible there. And that's the difference. If some is not showing anywhere, it means that it doesn't exist, actually. So we should not count it as adjective, rather as numeral. That is just only my opinion, of course you can have yours.
No, I would say that if it occurs in plural, so you shouldn't even have the restriction that this is an adjective that only occurs in singular, or even that it's not adjective, it's numeral. But if you have that system where you classify tokens or words according to their inflection properties, so I think it's okay if you say it's an adjective.
But for the real user, it is not important. For the real user, the essential part of this corpus are lexical equivalences. How to translate szamotać się.
Right. Yeah.
And know how to translate the construction, syntactic construction.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
No. Well, most of the queries certainly concern the lexicon, but there are queries that concern syntax or structures. I didn't show you, but you can really ask for a pattern and be interested in how it translates into some other language. So, for example, those constructions, I think in Polish it can be used as well, like pójdę nakupować, like pójdę robić zakupy.
It is sense to compare such constructions, but I doubt if it is a sense to use a corpus among multilinguistic corpus for such purposes. Of course, there are queries.
Well, no. Some people are interested how you translate those constructions, not individual lexemes or not multi-word expressions, but constructions, and there are parallel tree banks where people really align structures like parts of a syntactic tree.
But what you can find in the corpus is mainly information about the corpus and not about the real equivalences between languages.
But that's an objection that you can say about any corpus.
Yeah.
Not just parallel corpus.
Yeah, it's a general question. What is the purpose of the corpus?
Yeah, well, it's. I think most queries really concern the lexicon. Yeah, people are interested in how some form or lemma is translated in some other language. Some queries concern the structures also, and well, some of these bachelor theses they can even interested in some proportions, in frequencies, and some statistical measures. There are some articles, and of course, one of the users is an LP. Yeah, so parts of the corpus have been used at least in one machine translation system.
You can see results of this translation, for example, in Google Translation.
Yeah, but Google doesn't have InterCorp, I think.
Dobrze, czy jeszcze mamy jakieś sprawy, czy możemy przenieść dyskusję do kuluarów? Dziękuję bardzo prelegentowi. Jeszcze raz dziękuję. Zapraszam na czwartek, też 10:15. Możemy się